Title: The Emperor's Shadow. Prologue: The moon hung low over the battlefield as a lone rider galloped through the French countryside. Clad in a dark cloak, the figure clutched a leather-bound dispatch, words meant for Napoleon himself. Inside the fortress at Boulogne, the emperor stood over his maps, his mind already in motion. The fate of Europe hung on the edge of a blade. Chapter 1: A Mission in the Darkened London. Major William Kent received his orders. His mission: infiltrate Napoleon's Grand Army and uncover the emperor's next move. As a seasoned officer and skilled linguist, Kent knew the risks. Disguised as a French officer, he crossed the Channel, his path leading him into the heart of the enemy. Along the way, he encountered a mysterious woman, Celeste Moreau, an aristocrat with her own secrets. Chapter 2: Bonds of War. Amid the chaos of Austerlitz, Kent found himself face-to-face with a wounded French officer, Captain Etienne Duffert. Rather than leave him to die, Kent made a choice that would change his life. "Why save me?" Duffert asked. "Perhaps fate has plans for us both," Kent replied. Their friendship was forged in the fires of war, but suspicion always loomed. Meanwhile, Celeste resurfaced, revealing her ties to both the French and the British intelligence networks. Chapter 3: The Grand Advance. Napoleon's forces surged forward, victory after victory, cementing his place in history. Kent, now deep within enemy lines, sent coded messages back to Britain. But as he spent more time with the men of the Grand Army, he began to question whether his loyalty lay with his homeland or the men he fought beside. His growing attachment to Celeste made his mission even more dangerous. Chapter 4: The Russian Winter. The march on Moscow proved to be Napoleon's greatest blunder. The army, once invincible, was now starving and freezing. Duffert, weakened by hunger, leaned on Kent. "This is not the war I was promised," Duffert muttered. "None of us were promised this," Kent replied. As the retreat began, survival became the only mission. Kent and Celeste were forced to navigate the frozen landscape, evading Russian patrols and deserters. The bonds between them grew stronger, even as the war pushed them toward inevitable heartbreak. Chapter 5: Betrayal and Escape. With the French army crumbling, Kent's true identity was exposed. Accused of espionage, he was taken to a makeshift prison in Vilnius. It was Duffert who freed him. "I should kill you for the lies," Duffert spat, "but we are both men of honor." Their paths split, one fleeing toward Britain, the other returning to what remained of France's shattered army. Celeste, however, was captured by the Russians, leaving Kent tormented by guilt. Chapter 6: The Road to Waterloo. After Napoleon's exile to Elba, Europe held its breath. Kent returned to England, haunted by the war and Celeste's fate. But the peace was short-lived. Napoleon escaped, and the world braced for war once more. Kent was recalled to duty, assigned to Wellington's army. Meanwhile, Duffert, still loyal to the emperor, rejoined Napoleon for one last stand. Kent discovered Celeste had survived and was now working as a double agent. Their reunion was bittersweet. Love had no place on the battlefield. As war loomed, they parted once again, perhaps for the last time. Chapter 7: The Battle of Waterloo. June 1815. The world held its breath as Napoleon made his final stand at Waterloo. Kent, now a colonel in Wellington's army, scanned the battlefield. Across the lines, he saw Duffert, sword raised high. The two men who had once saved each other now stood on opposing sides. The battle raged for hours, the fate of Europe teetering on the edge. Celeste, operating as a spy, played a pivotal role in passing critical intelligence to the British, sealing Napoleon's fate. Duffert, wounded, fell from his horse. Kent found him once more. "It is over," Kent said. Duffert, bleeding but defiant, whispered, "Perhaps for him, but what of men like us?" Napoleon was exiled, and the world moved on. Chapter 8: The Long Shadow of War. With Napoleon defeated, Europe reshaped itself, but the scars of war remained. Kent retired from service, his heart heavy with all he had witnessed. Celeste, forever torn between two worlds, disappeared into the shifting tides of post-war intrigue. Duffert, a prisoner of war, awaited his uncertain fate. Epilogue. A changed Europe years later, in a Paris cafe, two older men